We are happy to announce that this episode of the SW Show is partially brought to you by Humble Bundle. Well, not really. We are part of the Humble Bundle referral program, and we just wanted to say that if you like really cheap games and maybe helping charity pending the Humble thing going on, all you have to do is go to humblebundle.com/partner equals SWW. That's right, humblebundle.com/partner equals SWW. And you just do your normal stuff, and it just kind of helps us get a couple bucks here and there. Maybe it helps AJ get his lights, maybe it's Mike camera, maybe we actually pay Corey for helping us out. But again, if you're going to go buy games anyway, it might be worth checking out.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show here on the SWW Show Podcast Network, where we talk all about Formula One. It's been a minute since we've done one of these, so we have got not one, not two, not even three, 4 whole races to talk. I'm looking like a member of the Four Horsemen behind my microphone. Me, AJ. As
Hello.
usual. And kind of as not usual, we've got some news stuff to cover first. First up, all y'all Americans get to keep the ESPN stuff. F1 announced that they are signing a media rights deal in the US with ESPN through 2025 for between 75 and 90 million a year rights, which is up from 5 million they had them for these past few years. It was also announced that they still plan to use the Sky coverage. So an exec told the Business Journal that they intend for the races to be presented essentially the way they are now relative to a commercial experience. So no NBC era cutting away for commercials. It's going to be the Sky coverage. You get to watch it in your 2-hour block. Bang, bang, boom. Nothing's. Which is great. I personally.
I was gonna say, yeah, that you had a fear that it was not going to be this way.
This is probably the best result that could have happened. In terms of availability. I really hope that going forward they put some more races on ABC. Very nice. Bigger audience. Not much bigger, but it is a bigger audience than those that have ESPN. So, like for instance, what does ABC have on Sunday mornings? Right, it's your local church stuff.
Do they still do that?
Some of them still do. Some of the ABCs still do. So, from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m., got nothing on ABC, right? So, why don't we get, the Monaco race on ABC? Why don't we get, I really hope the Miami, the Vegas, and the Austin races are all next year. I also really hope that Montreal gets on ABC. So now we're looking at 5 that I would really like to have on ABC. You could throw the British Grand Prix in there. You could throw Spa. Like, if you have the crown jewels, right? So Silverstone, Spa, Monaco, and Monza. So those 4 races. You take those plus Montreal, Miami, Austin, Vegas. That's 8 races that I would love for them to have on ABC. Because that would just be awesome. Right? Like, this is top level motorsport on a top level. And I think it would fit perfectly, right? Like, over half of those races that I said are European races, right? So they're going to be 8, 9 o'clock in the morning start. Why not? So we've got that looking forward to it. Couple bad things that we had to experience over the past couple weeks. Nelson Piquet, Sr., former F1 driver, also the father of Max Verstappen's fiance, had some racist remarks regarding Hamilton, specifically last year. I guess when this interview took place, about last year's race, Silverstone, where obviously, Hamilton punts Verstappen. Verstappen crashes out and Hamilton goes. The whole family doubled down behind the remark that Piquet made, except for Verstappen, which I thought was really was. And I feel like this is an even bigger issue because it's are white, right? So I don't know how much you experienced it. I know I experienced it, where it almost feels like minorities have a pass to say the N word.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
Right, like there's a large Hispanic population where I grew up. So at one of the jobs that I worked at, it was a production job. It was flying left, right, and center. Right, it was Hispanics calling each other, calling other minorities, calling the other white people. Right, like it was the Asians. But goddamn, if a white guy said it, shit was going to go down. And it was very much this situation, right, where he effectively called Hamilton the N-word, but then claimed that he was using it in a way that is not necessarily friendly, but more commonplace in Portuguese than and it was amazing to see the response from native Brazilians, native Portuguese, people that have spoken Portuguese, for 70 years. Be like, nah, son, we don't do that anymore. Like, was it a thing? Yes. And everyone in Brazil recognizes that. And so it's been tailed. Meanwhile, the whole family's doubling down, and like the one cousin of Max's fiance was like, "Oh yeah, our grandma calls us that." I'm like, dude, that is not something that you should say. Right? Like that makes it 10 times worse. So that whole situation, luckily, has kind of blown over. Because, first off, Nelson Piquet Sr. is rarely in the news. Piquet Jr. isn't racing in F1. Their only tie anymore is to Max, and it's his fiance, and she's very out of the image in F1. So they're not really around, which is nice. And then obviously, you had all the everyone coming out with messages of support for Lewis and saying we need to get racism out of the sport and racism out of culture in general, which I wholeheartedly agree with. I think part of that comes down to a self-policing thing, right? Like I said, right? Like if all minorities have a pass, you're never going to get rid of it, right? If it's only detrimental to one person, then what's the point, right? If it's supposedly so detrimental, if this one group of people says it to another group of people, why is it okay when it can go the other way, right? It just can't go down one way. So I think that's more of a culture change, right? That's something that needs to be tackled globally, and that shit needs to stop. Plain and center. Like another thing that needs to stop. Fans that were at the Austrian race were on social media like, "Hey, we're getting harassed in the stands." Right? Like, other quote unquote fans harassing these people verbally or physically, or kinds of things. It got to the point where like all the teams released a statement, F1 themselves released a statement, and then apparently when you walked in on Sunday, there were like on the screens, be respectful. Right? And unfortunately, with this being a home race for Red Bull and being like a 4-hour drive from the Netherlands, I have a very good feeling of who were the harassers. To say that it was definitively them, but it's a very good chance. And take that bill. Something that teams won't be taking with them here on out are flexible under trays. So Red Bull and Ferrari were the ones that had these. I think it was Mercedes that found out that they had them. Excuse me, if the other teams had them. Basically what this means, cars have to achieve a minimum ride height, sustain that, so they can't get closer to what it's set at. So what Red Bull and Ferrari figured out was, okay, well, let's just get the rest of the car lower to the. How do you do that? With a flexible part that allows the front of the car to lean into the floorboard, basically, and create higher rake, more downforce, faster times on the track. F1 has come out and shut that shit down. Unfortunately, I think Mercedes is already nearing the cost cap, I believe, for R&D.
Really?
So, yeah. Well, especially, they were a major operation, right? So having to cut down to $155 million from $500 million, right? They were probably already going to be as close as they could. And as we'll get to later, they've had some ability issues, they've had damage issues, and are probably nearing that cost cap. Other teams that are nearing it, with Red Bull, Christian Horner has come out and said, look, can we maybe bump this up? Because obviously they're new cars, they still need to get some of the stuff worked out. Drivers need to figure out how they can drive them. We've had some incidents where one of the Red Bulls have been involved, compressor. and to fix those cars comes out of the cost cap. Right? So if you're just crashing cars left and right, you're not going to be able to develop the car. So you're going to be in the back, causing issues, and it's not good. So I don't think the cost cap's going to go up anytime this season. There's enough opposition to keep it where it's at. But instead of keeping where we're at, let's move into the races. What do you think about that?
Vroom, vroom.
I hate that you have to unmute you. There's always an awkward. First off, let's get to Baku. A track that has had some awkward situations in the past. And continues to have them, this time for the Prancing Horse, where both of their cars go out with engine. This continues the Prancing Horse's reliability. I have a feeling, we'll get to it later in some of the other races, I have a feeling they've figured this out. And now it's just down to their strategy being dog shit, which is a Ferrari staple. We're going to go through these pretty quick because we have 4 of them to talk about. Russell continues his streak of finishing in the top 5. That streak can go, which is amazing. Verstappen defeats his demons after... I don't know if you remember, this was the race last year where both Lance Stroll and Verstappen had a tire failure.
Oh, no, I do not remember that.
Yeah, this was the race where, like, they were coming towards... It was one of the last turns of the track before they go down the long straight, and the tire just exploded. And Pirelli was like, oh no, it should last just fine, this and that. And then I think Stroll's was first, and then Verstappen's happened. And Verstappen was like 35 seconds in the... Like, the race was clearly his. I think the race was almost over. And his tire gave out. And all he could do was hang on. Right, and he ended up crashing. So he wins the race. Kind of our surprise finisher in this race, if you will. Vettel continues Racing Point's success at this track by getting 6th. Obviously, they're Aston Martin this year. But your podium was the aforementioned Verstappen, his teammate, Sergio Perez, and the aforementioned George Russell. This race was fun. It's one of those where, like, there's always something to see because they have the castle section, so it's always fun to watch the cars there. And then it has a long straight to the end and 90-degree turn. So it always produces good racing. And I feel like it'll be on the schedule for a track that should be on the F1 schedule forever is the race in Montreal. End of this
One of your favorites?
One of my favorites. The only track I've been to in person that has hosted an F1 race. Currently hosting, I should say. Back after a 3-year hiatus, I think. Because they didn't have one in 20 or 21. So, 22. 2019 was the last one. That was the one. And we got Montreal in the summer. Raining. And one way or another, basically every session of the race weekend was involved or impacted by the weather. So we had a wet qualifying, which always produces interesting results, to the tune of Fernando Alonso qualifying P2. The 40-year-old is on the front row. He continues to amaze. This man, I don't think ages. Fernando Alonso and Tom Brady will go down as the two athletes that never seem to. It's incredible. The other thing that was incredible was Perez loses an engine. That's not the incredible part. The incredible part is where he happened at turn 8, which puts him right next to the river. So there's a really cool shot of Perez walking the footpath. And it's like, it looks like he's in the woods, because he is. And to one side's the river, to the other side's a bunch of trees. And it's hard to believe that like 15 feet to his, to his right is the track, in stands. So it's just a really cool photo. If you want to see it, it's all over. Just look up like Perez Canada track or something, whatever, in the woods. And to make sure that his car didn't feel alone, Mick Schumacher retired at the exact same spot. And there are some cool photos of the safety crew just has both cars kind of stacked nose to tail behind the safety barrier. And it made me think when I saw the photo, I'm like, what happens if a third car retires there? Like, then do they have to call like a full course, like a safety car, so that they can get flatbeds over there to get the cars out because they just ran out of space? Like, it'd be the funniest reason for a safety car ever. Speaking of funny reasons that there was a safety car, Tsunoda comes out of the pits and immediately crashes. Tries to go a little too aggressively into the turn 2 of that turn 1-2 complex, which is where pit exit is. Pit exit to right onto turn 2. And his brakes just lock up, and he slides right into the barrier. And because there's no recovery point there, it was a full safety car, not a virtual. But in the end, Verstappen wins. Sainz gets second. Hamilton gets on the podium. And yep, George Russell continues the streak. Finished 4th. Leclerc had a great race. He started 19th because of his engine. He had to replace it. So he got penalty for the Canadian race. Now on to the one race that has a gazillion notes in our show doc. Because a lot happened. Considering this race only has 51 laps, a hell of a lot happened. We get it started with Carlos Sainz getting his first career pole position. This man has 150 races under his belt before he gets a. So good on him. Really good on him. But, it's kind of cool to see some of these records fall, right? Like Perez, it was like 200 something races before he got a pole.
Mm-hmm.
Sainz at 150, right? Like, obviously he still didn't have a win, but he finally got a pole position. Some of these guys that are in the unfortunate reality of they were always in the mid pack when there was dominance, right? Like Carlos started at Toro Rosso right after the Red Bull dominance, and then it started Mercedes dominance, right? Like, so there was very little chance for him to get into a position where he could compete for poles, for wins. So it's great to see him in Ferrari now and achieving some of these career goals. Now this next section is a perfect point on why the Halo needs cars.
You sent me this thing, and I was like, Jesus Christ.
So obviously the Halo saved a life already with Roman Grosjean's crash. Right, like if the Halo wasn't on, he would have been decapitated. Um, it potentially saved Hamilton's life last year at Monza when Verstappen's car landed on top of him. So, a lot of people were haters because they're like, oh, well, it impacts the vision or whatever. Let's get over that. Right? Um, but race starts, and within 30 seconds, right? Like they had just made a camera cut to the leading group going into turn two. All of a sudden in the back, you see a car upside down and sliding. What the shit? They show it. Guan Yu Zhou gets, like, basically pit maneuvered. His car immediately flips over. The roll hoop crushes. And he's sliding on the halo. Right? It's a good thing he wasn't tall. Because otherwise his helmet would have been sliding on the ground. So he slides down the pavement towards the gravel trap, where conveniently, like any car that hits a gravel trap sideways, his car flips. His car then carries the gravel trap and lands, luckily, wheel first into the catch fence, where he is then wedged between the catch fence and the tech probe. Had the halo not been there, they would have been picking up body parts still to this day. Right, if that crash happened the way it did. They would be scraping blood off the tarmac. Right, like this dude was good as dead. Had the halo not been. It also saved a life the same weekend in the F2 race. I didn't send you a link to this. If you want to look it up, you can. Sani had a car basically lawn dart into him, and the halo was the only thing there protecting him. Like, this car literally, locked his brakes up, hit a sausage curb, launched into the air, and went straight for Nasani's head. Had the halo not been there, his head would have been taken clean off. I'm talking like comedic, not comedic isn't the right word, but like just like oh, there's just a body with no head. Right, like that's what would have happened. So Halo needs to stay. I think now people realize that, and amazingly, Guan Yu Zhou was fine. Like, he was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm a little sore, but I'm good. Alex Albon was actually the only one that got, like, helicoptered out. And looking back at it, dude takes a hit. Like, he gets kind of smacked in the ass, and his car just takes, like, an immediate right-hand turn and launches him into the wall. It looked rough. But surprisingly, he was the only one that they were like, oh yeah, he's good, but we're still going to helicopter him out just to make sure he's good. As a result of the crash, which, shit, I mean, it was basically the back half of the field that was involved in the crash. A bunch of them ended up having, like, wing damage or floor damage that they had to deal with. And yes, the streak ends. George Russell.
So I want to jump in a second. Mm-hmm. Did you think they would end up canceling the race once all this happened, or do you think it was like realistically going to keep happening?
As long as Zhou didn't die, they were still going to go. Right, like, If he had died, they probably would have canceled it for the day. There's a chance they would have run it on the Monday. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there was ever like there was never a thought in my mind that okay, they are canceling this race. Because not enough was like once I found out that Joe was fine, right? Like they showed him walking. I was like, okay, this race is going on. Russell was already going to be out of the race. He had a tire go down, and they would have needed to flatbed the car, so that means you're retired. But it was confirmed when he jumps out of his car to go check on Joe, and he's standing on the tire barrier, like helping the safety crew as much as he can, which I thought was really cool. Ocon somehow survives what appears to be broken steering rod that he suffers in the race, or in that opening crash, only to have his engine die on him, which I think was just karma. Right? Karma realized, oh, you're still going? Ha, never mind. Pulls out a safety car because unluckiest place to break down is right before the start-finish line when you could have been in the pits. Sainz basically got a free pit stop because of the safety car. Goes on to retake the lead from his teammate Charles Leclerc, going with a me over the team mentality. Ends up winning the race, so Sainz gets his first career win. Verstappen ends up dueling with Schumacher, which they don't show it very much, but they show it right at the very end. Schumacher almost beat Verstappen to the end of the race. Like, obviously, Verstappen had some front wing damage that they had to deal with, and some floor damage that was basically ruining his day. But the fact that a Haas was hanging with a Red Bull, granted it was in a hampered state, was pretty impressive. And finally, we get on to, as we're recording this, the day of the Austrian Grand Prix.
Yeah, because I saw stuff about it this morning, kind of as it was happening.
Red Bull comes home. Red Bull does Red Bull things. Verstappen gets pulled. Not surprising. This was a race that has sprint race. I don't like that they exist, so I didn't include this. I did wonder why I was seeing stuff for qualifying Friday while I was working. What? This isn't Monaco. Oh, there's a sprint race. And Leclerc was second. Leclerc was like on one this race, especially to start. He was making some moves. He was making money moves. Ends up having to back out. Verstappen goes a little bit kind of wishy-washy because the problem with Austria is it's 71 or 72 laps. Right, it's a super short track, very fast. So strategy plays a huge factor. Right, like a racing lap around Austria is like a minute 10. Right, so if you have to pit, that's 20 seconds. Right, so that's like what? A third of your lap. Almost. That you're spent at 80 kilometers an hour or slower. So, teams want to do a one-stop as much as they can because it's hugely beneficial, this track. Or you just go balls out and just do 71 qualifying laps and just say, fuck it, and let's do how many pit stops we have to. which a lot of the teams ended up doing. Perez and Russell got into it at turn 4. This is the turn that is infamous where Lewis Hamilton basically punted Alex Albon off the track and said, he was not my fault. He was in the way. It's the turn coming down the hill. Gravel trap off to the left, and it's kind of a hairpin to the right. They make contact. It's bad enough that Perez ends up retiring because of it later in the race. Just didn't have the car, basically. Make it worthwhile. Just retire the cars and we'll save it. All the teams needed to get the same message, though, apparently, and stewards were apparently hawks. Because they were calling everyone for track limits violation. I mean, I bet if you looked, every car got at least one. Which is surprising because, like, before this, 2-3 years ago, track limits were barely a thing. Right? Like, a lot of drivers were exploiting it. There was the infamous event at the race in 21 where it wasn't in Austria, it was at Bahrain, where Lewis basically goes off the track, cuts one of the turns, and gets ahead of Verstappen. Or maintains his position ahead of Verstappen. There was some advantage gained, and it was very noticeable, and nothing was ever called. But the viewers of the World Endurance Championship should not be surprised by this, because that's where these stewards are, or these race directors are. They are both from WEC. The one guy went to DTM, but in those series, track limits are a huge thing. They penalize people all the time. So the way that it works in F1 is you get 2 warnings. Your second warning, you get the black and white flag for racing standards. The next infraction, it's not necessarily track limit, but the next infraction is a 5-second penalty. Obviously, that comes into play, right? Like, you could serve it at a pit stop. You can just take it on the chin and have 5 seconds added to your race time. Whatever. I think 4 or 5 drivers ended up getting penalized. Like, 5-second penalized. Which is crazy to think about. I will say, though, I always love this race because it seems to fly by. Right? You're like, oh shit, there's 71 laps of this. And then, like, you check Twitter on your phone for what seems like a minute, and 10 laps have gone by. You're like, oh shit. You know, what's going on? So you have to pay attention to this race. A lot happens in a short amount of time. And I think part of the reason that there were a lot of track limit infringements, there was a lot of side-by-side racing in this race. Like, a lot. So, obviously, that kind of promotes, if you will, track limit infringements, because you want to get an advantage on the guy you're trying to race, so you're going to go the shortest route possible. Or at least the fastest route possible. But just like they did in the UK, Haas balling out. And I mean balling out. Mick Schumacher ended up finishing 6th. Like, this is... They referenced it during the race, but they're like, you know, Haas would love to go back to their best result ever, which happened to be at Austria a couple years ago, where they finished like 5th and 7th or something like that. And they ended up finishing 6th and 8th. This is Haas. This is the team that everyone thinks is a joke. And rightfully so, kind of treated it. Um, I mean, so they scored 12 points. If we go to the drivers, let's see. Kevin Magnussen currently has 22. Mick Schumacher currently has 12. Like, before this result, Mick was with, like, Albon and Stroll at the bottom of the board. Now he's in 15th, but, like, he's 1 point ahead of Tsunoda. He's only 3 behind Vettel. He's 4 behind Gasly. He's 5 behind Ricciardo. And he's 10 behind his teammate. So, I mean, like, another good showing or two, Mick could catapult himself up this list. And it also put Haas into 7th on the constructors. They are ahead of AlphaTauri, Aston Martin, and Williams. And theoretically, they could catch Alfa Romeo. They're 17 behind Alfa Romeo. And then there's a 30-point gap between Alfa Romeo and Alpine. But, you know, if Haas is going to improve and these other teams are going to kind of just peter out or stay the same, like, you know, we're looking at their next race. France, that's a speed track. Hungary, that's a qualifying track. Belgium, speed track. Netherlands, yet to be determined. Monza, speed track. Singapore, technical track. Japan, technical track. Oda, kind of a mixture of both. Like, Mexico, speed track. Brazil, technical. Abu Dhabi, just a dog shit track. So they could stand to do very well for themselves towards the end of the year. It's just crazy, like, how well Haas has been doing in races. Going from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows, literally. Carlos Sainz, a week after winning his first ever race, has his car go up in a fireball. I don't know if you saw this on Twitter or if you watched the race, but he has an engine issue, and he pulls off to the runoff at turn 4. Well, that's on an uphill slope, and these cars obviously don't have handbrakes, so when he turns it off, it goes into neutral. There's nothing stopping it unless there's pressure on the brakes. So he has to stay in the car with his foot on the brake until they can get a wedge underneath one of the wheels. Meanwhile, his engine's on fire. Like an oil line blew or something, so it started on fire. So there's flames coming around towards the driver's cockpit as the safety crews are trying to get a wedge underneath a tire so Sainz can get out. It was just nuts. He ends up being fine. They show him, he's physically fine but mentally beat. Someone that's not mentally beat, though, is Lewis Hamilton. On the podium for his 3rd race in a row, getting 3rd again. Maybe getting a little of that Hamilton magic back. We'll see. The other thing we'll see for years to come, hopefully, is this battle between Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen. Leclerc gets the better of Verstappen this time. Apparently dealing with a stuck throttle issue as well that was intermittent. And he was able to not throw that car into a wall. So, yeah, those are our 4 races that we just had. We've got a little bit of a break. By little, I mean like a week or 2 before our next one. So, what did you think? Like, I don't know how much of these races that you saw. What did you think of these 4 races? Because we got a little bit of everything. I mean, we got Baku, which is just like, fuck it, let's see what happens. We got Canada, which is like probably the biggest party of the year. Great Britain, which is right there with Canada. And then you had Austria, which is, I mean, it's just a dead speed track, right? There's like 10 turns.
Mm.
What'd you think?
I think it was good. These were a good set of races. Obviously, the thing that I think we were talking about for a hot minute there was going back to the explosion of a race. I don't know about the last one before that, because you were sending it to me, and then I had to look it up, because, yeah, it was a wild time. Austria, I do agree with you a lot, though, that it was not as long of a race, because I would have catch bits and pieces of that this morning. But yeah, it was a good set of races. At least it wasn't a boring set, because we had those kind of hats, were just kind of sets of races, and they all kind of a slog, so we've not had that problem. So I'm looking forward to that season.
Yeah, I guess that's true, right? Like something happened in these 4 races. In every single race, right? So we didn't have like, oh, we got Spain, right? Which, unless something happens, there's nothing interesting about Spain. We've got Monaco, which, short of weather becoming a thing, it's never an interesting race. Pretty easy to predict. But yeah, I mean, I am happy with the 4 races that we had, which I think more than can be said about the last episode of Monaco and Spain. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Talk more about what's going on in the fastest sport in Suck It High Life.
The SW Show and all of its affiliate podcasts are podcast by me, Mike Maroney, and AJ Losi, sometimes by our contributors, including Corey King. You can follow the SWW Show on social media at the SWW Show, or sooner or later you go to patreon.com/SWW to help us out. Thank you. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day.